Hey, welcome back to my channel. So for this video, I'm going to talk about the second season of Star Trek Picard. So there will be spoilers, of course. I'll try to avoid any particularly huge spoilers, but I may fail. I don't have a script, so I may fail at avoiding huge spoilers. So just a warning. There will be some spoilers, potentially big ones. So this season was probably better made than the first season. At the very least, it kind of knew what it was doing. The first season, I never really. Maybe I'm just thick, but I never really got what the point was of the first season. The second season very clearly has one. It's very much about the past, about being, stuck in the past. Um, they travel to the past. Picard has to deal with his um, lingering emotions about his childhood and his mother and his father. Um, so the past was the main theme of this episode, or this season, I should say. Sorry, of this season. Whereas was never quite sure what the theme of the first season was. So yeah, they did. This season did at least know what it was trying to say. It did have a specific message that it was trying to convey of the need to let go of the past. Um, Also had a strong message of regarding family and found family. Um, Picard and his crew are sort of a found family. Um, Agnes Girardi is deeply lonely and looking for connection, looking for that family, which the Borg Queen preys upon. Um, with the Borg Queen herself also looking for connection and family. Uh, Rios, he finds family in the past with the Doctor and her son. Um, so, and family also is a big theme with Picard's memories of his childhood, of his parents, uh, which was also a big element. Mental health was also a big element, with Patrick Stewart sort of pushing to include it in the season. Um, Sort of because of things from his own childhood. I think his own mom struggled with mental health issues, so it was a topic that's always been dear to his heart, something he's always cared deeply about. So he made sure to get that included in this season, and it was done really well. That one was just a really really good subplot, um, really powerful, and dealing with the ways that that sort of thing can just completely overtake you to a certain extent. Um, the way it can haunt you for your whole life. Um, One interesting thing I've seen noted about this season is that three of the four main action heroes of this season are women who are over 50. Michelle Hurd as Raffi, Jerry Ryan as Seven of Nine, and Orla Brady as Talon. The fourth one would be Santiago Cabrera as Rios, who is still, he's still a bit of an action hero. Not as much as the women though. They do a lot more of the action stuff, and it's interesting. It's unusual for a major franchise to have older women in such prominent roles, never mind as the biggest ass kickers. So that was pretty interesting. Um, I remain deeply amused at just the way all the men in the Sung family look exactly the same. With Adam Sung uh, in this season. Played once again by Brent Spiner, as always, the only one who's allowed to play a Sung. Um, I just find it funny that they all, the genes are. Certain genes run strong in that family. They all look exactly the same, and it's always amusing. Speaking of which, his subplot was rather interesting here. Um, with Isa Briones, returning now playing Kore, and I do always like Greek mythology references, and yeah, she sort of lives. She does kind of live up to her name. Uh, because Kore was another name for Persephone, and Persephone means destroyer of men. So no surprise how her story ended up developing, where she ended up. Um, Q was really cool in this season. Um, Creepy and unsettling, and very compelling. And gotta say, and Guinan showing up as well. Uh, it's interesting that she was. Yeah, that one thing that I really liked about Guinan's appearance, they didn't do the thing where they would try to digitally de-age. Guinan in Picard's time, she's let herself get old. Uh, they didn't try to make her look the way she did in Next Generation. And then for the um, the stuff set in 2024, they just got a completely different actress. Ito Agayere, who did a fantastic job. She was so good in the role. Very different take on the character, but it worked really well. So yeah, she was really good. I liked her. Uh, I am a little bit miffed that they just kind of disregarded how Guinan already knew Picard from the 19th century, from the Times Arrow uh, Next Generation two-parter. Little disappointed that they seem to just disregard uh, that two-parter entirely. Because that was a good story. Like that was a good two-part episode. It was really good. So yeah, ignoring episodes that are bad, sure, fine. I'm totally down with that. But ignoring the good ones, I don't know. So that element was, but other than that, she was great. Uh, Loved how much attitude she brought. Um, she seemed jaded, living among humanity as long as she had. She had gotten clearly very jaded. Um, I did dislike that ran, that the bar she ran in the past was at number 10 on Forward Avenue. Like, that's no. 10 Forward was named because it was on the 10th deck at the forward. Most forward part of the ship. That's where the name of where the name of the bar in Next Generation on the Enterprise D came from. That's why it had that name. So to then sort of retcon it a little bit so that she previously had a bar at 10 Forward Avenue, that's just cheesy. It's the kind of cheesy retcon that's not needed, doesn't add anything, and is done purely as a wink and a nudge at the audience. And I don't know. It didn't. That one didn't work for me. That felt like them being too cutesy. I did like that Guinan in Picard's time had a bar at 10 Forward Avenue. That felt like, that felt like it would be authentic. The fact that that's where she would set her bar after all the adventures on the Enterprise D, that made sense to me. But the fact that she had a bar at 10 Forward Avenue in the past, no, I didn't like that part. I did kind of like the dark timeline they went to. It felt like, as I saw one person point out, it felt like what the mirror universe would be if they took out the evil is sexy and sexy is evil type of side of it. Because like the mirror universe did always have that. Did always have like a weirdly. I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. Like, there is this weird sexualization of the mirror universe where it was sort of like this puritanical idea of a dark timeline where sex is rampant and all that. It's like, but so the dark timeline here in Picard sort of didn't bother with that side of it. Didn't really bother with the whole sexiness angle, and just went with a fascist dictatorship where aliens are treated like crap. And so yeah, that one. So yeah, that was pretty cool. The dark timeline was cool. Let's see what else. What else? This is a spoiler. Will Wheaton does have a cameo in the final episode as Wesley Crusher. Didn't feel like Wesley Crusher. And I mean, it's been 30 years since we. Well, yeah, pretty much 30 years since we saw Wesley. He appeared in one of the Next Generation movies, but he got like no lines in it. So, and it was the shittiest of the Next Generation movies. Nemesis, I think it was Nemesis that he was in. Actually, bad Next Generation movie. There were like 3 bad Next Generation movies. Anyway, he didn't get any lines in that movie. So this is basically our first time seeing Wesley Crusher in 30 years. So it makes sense that he would be that he would have grown, that he'd be different. But even so, again, this is like how I saw one person describe it. It felt like Will Wheaton playing Will Wheaton rather than Will Wheaton playing Wesley Crusher. Um, so, yeah, he could have played the character a little bit different. Uh, Whatever. So, on the whole, this was a pretty good season. That said, I do feel like Picard is the weakest of the current generation of Star Trek shows. Um, and yes, that includes Prodigy. Because Star Trek Prodigy is a solid all ages, it's a solid family Star Trek. It's is it the best quality show? No, but it knows what it is, and it does what it does well. Picard, I feel like Star Trek Picard isn't really sure what it is as a show. Like I said, this season was better than the first one in that it had a solid theme that it explored well. But at the same time, it just it doesn't feel as tight as any of the other Star Treks. Uh, it's the show that relies most heavily on existing continuity, which it then tosses out whenever it feels like it. Because like a lot of it is taken from what's come before. It's you need knowledge of. I think that's what it is. It's a show that really banks on the viewers having an existing knowledge and love of Next Generation in particular. Like first season brought back Q, and this season had Q, and it's taking characters from Next Generation and less so from many of the other shows, mostly Next Generation. And season 3 apparently is just going to be a full-on Next Generation reunion, from what I've heard. Um, so this show is a sequel, and I don't know. Sequels are rarely as good as the original. Um, And I feel like I feel like this show sometimes relies too heavily on what's come before. Though, again, it's also willing to throw out uh, what's come before when they feel like it. Which, again, it's. And yes, I am still talking about Time Zero. It's just. If you're going to do something that is so reliant, so overwhelmingly, completely reliant on people being fans of what's come before, to then ignore one of the more popular stories, like one of the more popular episodes, to just ignore that it ever happened to create a completely new first meeting between characters, I feel like that just doesn't work. Like I said, it's just. It hampers it a little bit. That reliance on the past, I feel, hampers it a little bit. It makes the show all about nostalgia, while I always felt that at its best, Star Trek was about looking forward rather than about looking back. And Star Trek Picard is a show that relies pretty heavily on looking back. So, not a fan of that aspect of the show. That said, it's a good cast. Good chemistry between most of them. The Raffi Seven relationship, for most of the season, it was like, why are these two dating? The reason is because a producer thought they looked good standing next to each other. I'm not joking. Like, that's literally why they were put together in a relationship. Producer or writer or somebody saw them standing next to each other and thought they looked good and was like, you know what? Let's make them date. But, like, there's no communication between them for most of the season. They barely seem to like each other most of the time, so it's like. And I didn't really get that much in the way of romantic chemistry between them. You know, Rios and the Doctor, they had chemistry, but Seven and Raffi, I didn't find that much chemistry between them. You know, maybe you disagree. Maybe you thought there was great chemistry, but I didn't really think that there was great chemistry between them. At least not romantic chemistry. You know, I would have bought them back. It would have felt more authentic for them to be people who just worked together, but kind of didn't really like each other that much. That's sort of how it felt to me. You know, they're friends, but reluctantly. But whatever. Like I said, for the most part, the cast works well together, and there were some nice elements that were brought back. The observers, like, god damn, they're going back to Gary 7? Jeez, that's a deep cut. Fun fact, that episode of Star Trek the original series that featured Gary Seven, that was intended to be a stealth pilot. There were plans to spin off a series starring Gary Seven and his cat and that secretary. Yeah, Simon Earth was the name of the original series episode. Sadly, obviously, that didn't happen. But yeah, that's pretty cool that they or supervisor. Yeah, not observer, supervisor. So yeah, I mean it's pretty cool that they sort of brought back that concept. Uh, so there were some occasional nice little deep cuts to in Star Trek of Star Trek lore, um, but yeah, on the whole, it was good. It was a good season. It's a good show. I would still argue that it's the weakest of the current generation of Star Treks, but whatever. So that's plenty said about that. So tomorrow I'll have another episode of my Mass Effect Let's Play up. I forget what I'll be doing in it. I think more stuff on Omega. I think my next episode is one where I recruit Morden. Anyway, so tune in for that. I'm enjoying my Mass Effect Legendary Edition Let's Play. So give it a watch. I think I'm having a good time, and I think it's pretty fun. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.